Hi everyone, welcome to our weekly Q&A session, and today it is my pleasure to welcome here our coach Ali. So Ali, how are you today? It's really nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too, Veronika. I'm really glad to be here. And yeah, I'm doing really well, enjoying sun and looking forward to spring finally.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I'm so glad that the sun is coming up here in Slovakia, and because usually the winter is so gray, so dark, and
Yeah.
it's not even so cold these late, basically months and actually years.
Yeah.
So it's freezing outside. It's sunny. It's just perfect winter for me.
Yeah.
I'm really, really glad about this. Okay, so I think we can start, and I have a few questions prepared before the live comments come in. So let's see the first question, which we got from Stefano. How can I convince myself that I don't have a disease or that my insomnia is regular? So, what do you think, Ali, if somebody has the first encounter with insomnia,
Mhm.
and how would you approach this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a normal question, and I think that a lot of times people who experience insomnia, like I'm explaining my own experience, that they also tend to have what I call this. I mean, it's normally called like health anxiety, right? So we are also afraid, like, what if this is some sort of like something serious and all this kind of stuff. And I would say that, of course, it makes sense, like, to check with the doctor if there's any sort of like concern around health. It makes total sense for the peace of mind. But also, what I want to kind of like point out, that insomnia revolves around the anxiety and pressure to sleep, right? So if there is already some sort of worry or fear or panic, right, that also like points at the element of just the regular way insomnia manifests itself, that we are begin to worry how our sleep will impact our overall life and all this kind of stuff. So I would say that life goes on even when we have insomnia, right? So people can get sick, people, like whatever can happen, right? It's not just that when we are going through insomnia, then nothing else should happen to us, right? But also knowing that when we begin to worry about anything related to sleep, this is a very a good sign of that manifestation of insomnia, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Like, of course, like insomnia can start with some sleep disruption, but when the disruption is not anymore present and the insomnia continues, then we start to worry about it, start to overthink it, we start to go to check with every doctor and whether everything is okay with us. And this when everything turns out to be fine and there is a lot of fear, a lot of stress from the morning you think about how you will sleep that night, the next night, then it's a really good cue that probably, hey, this is just our kind of like regular insomnia, which is like basically sleep anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have another question. Which is, can you experience hyperarousal for no obvious reason? I feel hyperarousal every night at the moment, even though I feel quite comfortable because of all the useful knowledge you guys gave me. So, what do you think, Ali? Is it
Yeah.
normal?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing, that hyperarousal can be coming from hyperarousal itself. So it's this kind of like a feedback loop. When we notice that we have hyperarousal and we begin to wonder, why do I feel this way? There is no reason for me to feel that way, right? So we begin to worry about our worry, right? And
Mhm.
that creates also this kind of situation that we have this inexplicable hyperarousal, and then we start pondering, maybe there is something is wrong with me because I'm not supposed to feel hyperaroused. And sometimes that belief that I shouldn't feel anxious for no reason, that can often create this kind of like inexplicable hyperarousal. And therefore the way to approach this, in my opinion, is to make it okay for hyperarousal to show up without necessarily having the reason. We don't have to really go down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out like exact reason why a certain emotion arised.
Mhm.
Like we can do it like with some kind of like investigate certain fears that we have, but we don't need to do it too kind of like religiously and try to go down every rabbit hole, and because that's also kind of like supports this overthinking. So sometimes just knowing like, okay, there is hyperarousal, it's perfectly fine, and I'm just gonna allow it to be there.
Absolutely. What I would add maybe is just reinforcing the idea that between education and like really implementing and seeing any change, there is a lag. So it's really great that you got the knowledge, you know what is this about, there is nothing wrong with you, it's perfectly normal. So this can give you a sense of calm. But the fact that you're experiencing hyperarousal and you have been experiencing hyperarousal for quite some time, it is kind of like this conditioned fear response. So it happens automatically. And it's going to take quite some time until this fear response lessens and your brain feels safe and allows you to sleep. So it's always, anytime you feel the hyperarousal at night, you can see it as an opportunity. Oh, despite I'm not sleeping right now, I'm safe here, right? Because it's actually a really nice or very common trajectory of insomnia recovery. Like at first, we are feeling a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, we are freaking out, we feel panicky. But with knowledge, the hyperarousal, this kind of hyperarousal goes down. But still, there is some residual hyperarousal that is still running through our body and is basically not allowing us to sleep. And this is coming up to what you were saying, this wonder wall, this thinking, oh, I don't feel so anxious, I don't feel so scared anymore, so why am I not sleeping? And we are wondering and pondering, is it still okay? Actually I have to say, like, when people hit this stage of insomnia recovery, they get really worried, like, okay, I've understood everything, my anxiety is almost non-existent, so why am I not sleeping? And they start to worry more, right? So just know this is a really normal trajectory of insomnia recovery, to not feeling so much anxiety, feeling peaceful, but still not sleeping. It's take quite some time for the sleep to catch up, right? It kind of like happens at the end of the process.
Yeah.
So I hope this helpful.
And just to add on top of what you said, also that this experience also shows that we don't have to chase a perfect state of being or a perfect state of mind, because sometimes like we can be perfectly calm and comfortable, right? But then sleep can still take a while to come, right? And then there can be nights when we might be so anxious, so alert, right? And then for whatever reason, like sleep happens quicker, right? So just seeing that things are not as connected as we originally think, that this can also help us a little bit relax, even if there is certain experiences are present, because they don't really predetermine what our night is going to look like.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. Okay, and we have a first question from Ahmad. So, what is the best way to adjust my sleep schedule if want to sleep and wake up at a certain time? So what do you think, Ali?
Yeah, I would maybe first of all like investigate the intention behind this desire to somehow adjust the sleep schedule, because if we are trying to kind of manipulate our sleep in a certain way, right, this could just create more pressure on us. So even when we put a certain like sleep structure or like schedule, then we are still kind of forcing ourselves like, okay, so since I have this schedule in place, I must be sleeping better, right? So that's why I usually introduce this idea, like if it makes sense to your overall life or your lifestyle to create some sort of a sleep schedule, or not sleep schedule, but more like a window when you would like to start your day, when you would like to end your day, right? And this decision is not guided by this fear of not sleeping, then whatever the schedule like makes sense to this person, it's all okay. Some people find it that they want to start their day at let's say 6 a.m., right? Because they just want to kind of like, that's their preferred way, regardless of how they sleep. For other person, this might be like, it doesn't make sense to start at 6 a.m. They prefer like say at 8 or something like, or some people prefer not to have any structure. They say like, okay, I just want to my body will tell me like when I want to kind of like end my night or my this kind of like a window there. So investigating the source of that question, like, am I trying to problem solve my sleep, or am I trying just to live my life as I want to live it, right? And this can make like a big difference. And again, there is no best way to, like, there's no right sleep schedules, because there are people who prefer to go to bed earlier. Some people prefer to go to bed later. Some people prefer not to have any structure, and either way is okay. So listening to yourself, what feels most natural, what doesn't feel like a burden, this could be a great pointer in deciding sleep schedule.
As you were speaking, Ahmad shared like follow-up information, and he's saying, I'm asking about the sleep schedule because I want to wake up early to keep up with my work and daily activities. So I think the intention is really nice behind
it. In this case, if it makes sense to just start the day early, then whatever time that Ahmad imagines would be the suitable for them, then it's basically okay. The only thing is like not to kind of like obsess over like whether we had enough sleep, or whether it was a good night or bad night. Sometimes it's just like, okay, this is what makes sense to me, and this is what I want to stick to. Right? And this could be a nice way to do this, kind of introduce some sort of structure. And also I would say that our wake up times can be more kind of like regular if we wish them to be regular. But I would say, like, when it comes to bedtime, it makes sense to maybe keep it more flexible than wake up time, because unlike waking up, we don't really have control over when sleep actually happens. So in the case of waking up, we can just like set an alarm right at the same time. But when it comes to bedtime, sometimes sleep happens sooner, sometimes later. So just making it more flexible and looking at it as that, okay, now I'm just allowing myself to rest, rather than now I need to sleep. This is my like sleep window start, because then it creates pressure, creates this performance anxiety. But when you just realize, okay, this is going to be the time when I'm just allowing myself to rest, and whenever sleep happens, that's when it happens, right? This could be a more helpful way to approach this sort of like a sleep schedule thing.
Right. And I wanted to add something. I think maybe if Ahmad is asking like how to adjust like this wake up time, it's maybe the way like how to do it. Okay, so Ahmad, if you like decide, okay, I want to get up at 6 a.m. but by now you have been waking up at like 8, 9, 10. It might be quite a huge difference, like to wake up 4 hours earlier. But there might be some bumpiness at the beginning. You might feel like this anticipatory anxiety, like, will I be able to wake up at this time? Is it going to be, how do I feel the next day? The anxiety connected to it is, I'm sorry, it's very normal. And just, I want to normalize for you that the bumpiness will be, there might be some bumpiness, or what you can do is just to do it gradually. If you don't want to do it like this kind of like drastically, like to wake up 4 hours earlier every day, then you can wake up before the time you want to start. Just you can change your alarm clock one hour earlier, like day by day, for example, just to make it for yourself easier. But eventually do what feels right, and see what is the path of least resistance for you. Right. We have a question from Ganix. What to do about nighttime awakenings? I often wake up like 4 or 5 times every 2 hours for weeks, and I don't even sleep that long. So what do you think, Gani?
Yeah, this is a very common question. I would say, like, people who are find themselves like struggling with this kind of like sleep maintenance type of issues. The first thing that I like to share is, like, first of all, every person wakes up at night. They might not necessarily remember those awakenings, but our sleep is not kind of like a solid chunk of like unconsciousness. we are going through cycles, and each cycle has stages, and each stage is kind of like, there are some deeper stages of sleep, then there are kind of like more shallow stages of sleep, and usually at the end of each cycle we are approaching this stage where it's very close to awakening state. And oftentimes this is exactly when people tend to wake up. And usually, like when there is no hyperarousal, when there's no fear around awakening itself, then those awakenings, they don't really, sometimes they are not even remembered. So the person has an impression that they just slept the whole time. But in reality, if, let's say, they go to a sleep study or something like this, then those like brief awakenings would be recorded to some extent. So just normalizing that even like an average person wakes up at night, most likely several times per night, already can reduce a lot of pressure when it comes to those awakenings. And now when a person struggles with this kind of like maintenance insomnia, they usually, it's not the problem of awakening as such, because as I shared earlier, that it's normal, like in everyone's, like to wake up throughout the night. It is what that awakening represents to them, how they interpret this experience. And when we have a very negative, we're very critical perspective on awakening, such as this shouldn't be happening, I should not wake up so many times at night, right? The moment when we register the awakening, this narrative starts to play out, ramping up our anxiety, and therefore it makes it difficult to fall back asleep. So therefore, we cannot control how many times we wake up at night, and we don't control whether we wake up at night or not, right? This is beyond anyone's control. At the same time, we also cannot force ourselves to fall back asleep in a certain time frame, right? So there are certain limitations that we need to kind of accept when working with the situation. And the only thing where we can make a huge change is in how we interpret this experience, how we think about it, what sort of actions that we take in response to it, right? Because if we are trying to quickly make ourselves fall asleep, or we start like trying different like sleep efforts, that creates more hyperarousal, keeping us more awake, right? But when we just approach it from this perspective that being awake at night is safe, being awake at night is not a failure, and the next day still can be can turn out to be okay, even if there is like wakefulness during the night, then we are disengaging that cycle that keeps us so hyper aroused and tense, and eventually those awakenings, they stop being seen as a problem, and then even if we do wake up, then sleep like kind of like naturally comes back after a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And my favorite way how to reframe these night awakenings is the fact that you wake up, it means that you must have slept before, right?
Yeah.
So your body knows how to do it. If you wake up like 10 times a night, it means you must have fallen asleep 10 times before that. So it's absolutely okay. It's absolutely normal. Your body knows how to do it. And I know these awakenings are annoying. I know that we don't like them, but we have zero control over them, whether we wake up or not. So, but when we normalize them, like, yeah, I'm awake, I can't do anything about it. And what is most helpful is my reaction to them. Like, oh, I wake up. This means I have slept before, which is great, right? Our brain is associating these awakenings with, with safety, right? Because our brains learn from us. It means the way we react, our brain is just writing it down. Like Ahmad was organics. Organics reacted with fear, with anger, right? This must mean this is a problem. So let's send some more awakenings. But when Organics reacts like, this is okay, this is safe, it's fine, he feels comfortable with being awake, then our brain feels safe and allows us more restful sleep. So cool. We have answered this one, and we have a question from Nazia Yan. Hi, Nazia. Hello. I'm struggling with insomnia all of a sudden. I'm visiting a neurologist right now, and I am very desperate to sleep. Why does melatonin not affect someone with insomnia? So what do you think, Ali?
Yeah. Well, first of all, sorry to hear about your struggle, Nazia. I understand that the beginnings of the struggle can be very intense. We don't know what is going on with us. We go to so many professionals just to get some sort of idea. And, I also went to neurologists and, in my experience, they actually didn't, there was no real help from that. But anyway, like, I hope that you are, addressing this problem in the way that feels right to you. But I would say that if this is just like the starting kind of like experience for you, just like recently had this kind of fear, it makes sense to just spend a little bit of time around like education on like what exactly insomnia is, how it works, what sort of things kind of like maintain it, what sort of things kind of disengage this vicious cycle. And therefore, that alone can already provide a very good foundation for understanding what next steps to take in this regards. And to your question about melatonin, here's the thing: nothing external can produce sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it makes total sense that melatonin does not really solve insomnia as such, right? Even like in the a while ago, like when I was like reading a lot of studies about like also I was going down that route, like that I want to find some sort of like supplement or something that would make me sleep, right? And melatonin was one of those things that I was researching. And then the studies that were made about melatonin, they only kind of like showed some sort of like effect on time, this jet lag, rather than this the actual like insomnia struggle. So um, what makes us struggle so much with our sleep on an ongoing basis is actually our fear of not sleeping. We
Mm-hmm.
are so afraid that we will experience wakefulness, and that fear makes us more alert. It's like our brain feels that it's not safe to be asleep because there is a possibility of not sleeping, which is
Mm-hmm.
like a total paradox. But there is a way to break that paradox, and the way to do that is not through trying to induce sleep, because, as I said earlier, this is not something that we have control over. We cannot willfully create sleep through our intention or through external things. But what we can do is that we can ease the pressure that we feel about getting to sleep, uh, changing our relationship with wakefulness as such, seeing it not as an enemy but something that is friendly or at least neutral. And over time, the perception change allows us to feel more safe, more at ease with our nights. And therefore, in that state of no longer fighting, no longer embracing for the worst, that's when sleep finds us easier. And this is a process. It's not something that happens overnight. So if you find yourself that you cannot really quickly make that switch in that perspective and look at your wakefulness as safe, that's completely normal. We all took time. For me, this journey went for many, many months. So but again, it's going to be a gradual process. It's not that we are going to struggle like this for a long time, but each time we are challenging our old perspectives on wakefulness, and we show up to whatever experience that happens to us, the fear barrier starts to deflate. And therefore, we become to feel more and more comfortable with being awake, which paradoxically, over time, leads to easier nights and more sleep. So I hope that makes sense. But again, like, very sorry that you're going through this. I really understand what it feels like just when we are starting to have this issue.
Absolutely. Maybe what I would just add, like, why does melatonin not affect someone with insomnia? I have to say, like, I tried, of course, melatonin, valerian root, magnesium, all these kind of supplements, and even the pills, like the benzos and antidepressants and the anxiety meds. And the thing is that actually it was for me the scariest feeling I have ever had in my life, like, because I got from the doctor the pill, and I believed, okay, this is the pill and this is going to end this torture. And imagine my surprise when I took the pill and nothing happened. I was so scared, like, oh my goodness, if even this can help me out, there must be something physically broken with me. And I only wish I knew then that it was just my body's hyperarousal that overrode this effect of the pill. And you know, you can take any pill, but if you're in a strong conflict with it, if you are really depending, if you believe like, oh my goodness, this must save me, this must be it, your monitoring increases, the control increases, the pressure is high, and so you are like, your hyperarousal is through the roof. So there is no way it's going to take any effect, this pill, right? And sometimes I took maybe more of the pills at once, and still nothing happened. It was really scary. So I just want to normalize, it's very normal for you, there is nothing wrong with you. And just spend some time on the channel, learn about insomnia, about emotions, about anxiety and fear, and I believe the things will get easier for you, Nazia. Cool. We have a question from Tony. Does insomnia cause headaches? I'm sleeping 2-3 hours and my head hurts every day. So, have you experienced headaches, Ali?
Occasionally, yes, but here's the thing: I experience headaches, and even without insomnia, even after my recovery, I still there are days when I have, like my head hurts, and I would say that, you know, as earlier I said, like life goes on even when we struggle with this. So meaning that sometimes we get headaches, sometimes we don't feel that well, like, or we have like whatever, some health issue or something like this. Not every single thing is connected to our struggle with sleep, so that's important to kind of keep in mind. Now also, insomnia can be experienced in many ways. For example, when, let's say, it's obvious that, let's say, when we didn't sleep much or at all at night, the next day we might feel physically tired. We might feel maybe there's like a brain fog or anything like this, right? And I would not be surprised that in some people that could manifest also as having like a headache or something like this, right? So the kind of like the experiences could be different in each person, right? But what really matters in this process is not that whether headache or any other thing showed up or not. It's actually what's our relationship with that. If we are taking it as something that oh my god, this is wrong, this is I shouldn't feel that way, right? What we are doing, we are increasing our pressure on us to sleep even more, and therefore, because we are feeling so pressured to sleep, then we are end up not sleeping that well, and then this kind of like cycle continues. So whenever we work with any sort of experiences that happened like during insomnia, treating ourselves kindly and compassionately without judging ourselves for having certain experiences, that could be a helpful step in breaking that cycle. Because when we are no longer afraid of feeling in a certain way during the day, then we feel less pressure when it comes to night, right? And therefore, then we are kind of like exiting this loop. But again, accepting that there is a certain experience happens in during our day doesn't mean liking it. So therefore, if it makes sense for you to address this headache, by all means, like there's no problem with that, right? There are some days like when I have a headache, not related even to how I slept, but here's the thing, that some days I prefer, like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to be with this feeling, and over time actually that starts to kind of like dissolve. And then there are other days when I feel like, no, I don't have capacity to go through it and so on, and then I use some I take some painkiller or something, like just to help myself, support myself during this day. So whatever feels right, or however we want to address this, it's always like kind of like worth considering. And of course, like not a medical advice, but see if like whatever feels natural to you, how to address this. But again, like our relationship with those things, these are the ones that causing us suffering, the internal suffering, rather than the things themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, Ali. And it's a relationship. Like when we are, I'll give you an example. Like if I would be scared of having a headache, of course, the moment we start to feel the headache, we get scared of it. The more scared we are, the more pronounced the headache is. So it's very normal that we kind of like, then we carry this feeling of headache like through the all day, right? And so really, when we speak about the relationship with this symptom, then when we kind of like normalize it, like do something different, like not being scared of it, rather normalize it. Like, of course, I sleep just a couple of hours. I have a headache. I usually have headaches when I sleep so little. Then when we just normalize it, of course, I have a headache and I don't have to be afraid of it. I don't have to like it, just like you said, Ali. I don't have to like it, but it's here. I can control it. Maybe, of course, I can take a painkiller out of as an act of self-kindness, right? But I don't have to make it anything bigger out of it than it really is. And alongside, when I acknowledge this symptom, I can start to do something. I can start to engage with life. It doesn't have to paralyze me. For me, so many times I was literally stuck in this phase where, oh my God, I have a terrible night. This means I can't do anything in the day. I had to kind of like save my energy. And this was a rabbit hole because I wasn't doing anything. I would lay all day long on the couch and I was literally scared. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? But when we start to bit by bit engage with our life, when we start to, okay, so at least I can cook something here. I can go for a walk. I can do this little bit of work at least. Then we see that the headache or the symptom that is most bothering us is not so dominant and goes more into the background. And with this behavior, with this relationship, like you say, we are teaching our brain that, okay, despite this symptom is not a problem. And our brain it likes to bring the attention on what we notice the most, right? So, oh, it was Tony, right? Yes, it was Tony. Oh, Tony reacts most on the headaches, so let's send her more headache. And so, but when you treat it like, okay, it's normal. Of course, I'm having a headache. When you treat it with self-kindness, then then your brain will understand. Aha, I will not get Danny's attention with the headache. So it will maybe give you some other symptom, right? Okay, so I'll send you some dizziness, for example, right? But and again, it's all about the relationship with all these various symptoms, because with insomnia package comes really a lot of various symptoms, right? Some are more pronounced, some are less, but it's in the end of the day, it's about our relationship with them, with these kind of symptoms. So, right, I think we have answered this question, and now we have a question from by Gritton. I hope I have pronounced it well. Why do people with insomnia never really feel drowsy or sleepy? I haven't really felt sleepy in months. And I notice like some days I fall asleep like in 10 minutes, and then other days I lay there for hours and don't find sleep. It's so exhausting. Very common. I can start with this one. And it's very normal that you don't feel drowsy. Honestly, I haven't felt drowsy for really, really long time. I don't want to tell you how long because I don't want to scare you. But it's very normal because we are basically running on hyperarousal. And hyperarousal is not really, not really, doesn't really match. It doesn't help us to sleep, right? But it is kind of like an obstacle in our sleep, right? So it's very normal that we can't nap, we can't sleep in, because and we don't feel drowsy. And the tricky thing is to wait for sleepiness to allow ourselves to rest, because so many times we are trying to chase this feeling of sleepy, and when we don't feel it, we get scared, we get worried, and with these worries we are again raising our hyperarousal. So for a period of time I didn't really fall asleep. I crashed into sleep, if that makes sense, because there wasn't this like kind of like nice transition, like heavy eyelids, feeling like sleepy and cozy. It was for a long time. It was just like crashing into sleep. So I just want to normalize this. And yes, this is very normal. Some nights we fell asleep in 10 minutes. Other nights we fell asleep in maybe we have an all-nighter, right? It's this up and down with insomnia is very common. There's nothing strange or unusual. It's about the relationship, how you relate to those wakeful moments, to the moments with anxiety, to moments that we struggle. So, right. Anything to add from your side, or we can move on?
No, I think it's really, you communicated this really clearly, and just maybe kind of like a reassuring point here is that this sleepiness or sleepy feeling does return. As our hyperarousal drops, it comes back. So it's not like that this is going to be our experience of nights for the rest of our lives. As you said, it comes from this heightened alert state. And therefore, as we are changing our relationship with wakefulness, we are no longer seeing it as a threat. Therefore, we feel our body feels more kind of safe to start sending us like natural this sleepy feeling. But even if it doesn't happen, as this person actually like said, like sometimes they fall asleep in 10 minutes. So that means that even if we don't feel sleepy, it doesn't mean that sleep will not happen.
Right.
And we have evidence to support that. So we don't have to force ourselves to feel sleepy. It will happen when it happens.
Okay, thank you so much. And we have a question from Aria. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm very worried about serious health consequences of insomnia, which gives a lot of anxiety. Most studies tell insomnia and less sleep duration is dangerous. Many are associations, but still it seems risky and gives a lot of anxiety. What should I do to reassure? There seems no light or hope. I think there's a similar question.
Yeah, there are more questions about this kind of. So maybe we can just
yes, I will just
address this health anxiety and
Mark. Does insomnia increase risk of heart or other diseases? I have cardiophobia, and I have extreme days I do not sleep for 2 days or so, and it's scary. And the other one is about exams. Okay, so these two are about health scare. So the word is yours, Ali.
Yeah, well, it's completely understandable to be worried about health because it's natural for human beings to care about this kind of thing. So just because we are worrying about that, it's also normal. I also had a period where I was really scared for my life, and all those studies and big claims in the articles and certain podcasts, they kind of reinforce this idea that I'm not safe because I'm experiencing something like this. And I would say just for anyone who is having this sort of like worries, on the Sleep Coach School channel, there is a beautiful playlist called Heard Online. And this is where Coach Daniel, he really demystifies all these scary studies, all those fear-mongering claims. And I think this can be a really great place to learn a little bit more about this kind of like connection between like insomnia and other health issues, or whether there is actually a connection. So to me, it feels like a really good place to start. Just to demystify, see things like as they are, because there are some studies which don't really get so much attention that actually show that there is no significant like there's no difference between people who struggled with insomnia and those who don't in their life expectancy overall. Or all cause mortality or something like this. I think this, like, one of those videos are on the channel, and it can be really reassuring that just because we are struggling with this right now, it doesn't actually mean that something disastrous is going to happen. And what I usually like to introduce the idea when a person is afraid of like, okay, something bad will happen if I'm having insomnia, if I don't sleep, let's say like X number of days, right? Just kind of like a thought experiment. Are there cases of people who struggle, let's say, with 30, 40 years of insomnia and still having like perfect health? Yes, there are people like that. And actually, like many people like who are going through this kind of like experience, they're still like, their life goes on. They still function and so on, right? And then think about those cases that people who actually have like some serious health problems, are all of them struggle, like are all of them insomniacs? And the answer will be like, not really, actually. Like we can think like people who have like, cancer or, diabetes or, heart diseases, and there will be a big segment, like a big um, group of people like who actually like they were perfect sleepers their whole lives, and yet they still have like these problems. So kind of like seeing that things might not be as connected as they seem at first, this can already put our worries at rest. And again, like, it's not about reassuring ourselves that we will never ever have health problems, because human life like includes sometimes like that. Yes, people do get sick, people do get certain things, right? So also looking at it from this kind of like philosophical perspective, that what, like, anyone is kind of like could be subjected to having health problems, right? So it's not necessarily that how I sleep determines for sure how I'm going to feel. And therefore, just maybe approaching it like from rational perspective, that can also ease some pressure that we are feeling.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And maybe what I would tackle is like when Mark is talking about cardiophobia, is not about maybe making sure that everything is perfect and my heart is healthy. It's about tackling the emotion that is attached to this phobia, about talking about this phobia, about this fear that we need to acknowledge. Sorry. We need to acknowledge this emotion that is underlying behind this phobia. What does this mean to me? Like for example, this fear, this anxiety that I have attached, it's we can never make sure 100% that everything is 1,000,000% perfectly fine and healthy with us, but we can learn how to find the comfort in the uncertainty of it. And I know it might not be easy. It's maybe too distant for you right now, Mark, but in general, when you have some kind of phobia, like even insomnia is phobia, right? It is, we do absolutely everything to avoid not being awake at night, right? So we first need to tackle the fear, the anxiety, all the emotions that are connected with it, and this is how we face it and overcome it. So it's just what I wanted to add. And right, let's answer one last question from Purple Canvas. I'm really scared for my big exams coming up, and having insomnia makes me terrified. Can you please tell me how to manage during this time? How can we stay calm during this time? So um, I can answer, I think, actually. It's very normal to feel scared of the exams, the having like a big events ahead. It's making it's giving us some hyperarousal, it's giving us stress, it's giving us sleep disruption. So it doesn't have to be solely about fear of not sleeping, but also about the fear of the upcoming exam that is causing us trouble sleeping. So what would I like to kind of like how to help people, or what would help me knowing then was that actually hyperarousal is not really a friend with peaceful sleep, but hyperarousal is something that is helping us to function the next day. Hyperarousal, in other words, it's fight or flight. A part of the fight or flight is racing thoughts, fast thinking. So that was actually, my insomnia started when I was at the university, and final exams I did on basically no sleep. Right, I had some tracked sleep for a couple of hours for many months then, and I passed them all because the hyperarousal in this way is not an enemy to me. It was something that helped me to move on, that helped me to function. I necessarily didn't feel nice, but I managed. I managed to study. I managed to remember things. I managed to answer the questions on the exam, and so. The first thing I want you to take from what I'm telling you, Purple Canvas, is that the hyperarousal is your friend, right? And it will help you in because when we are in this challenging situation, even not only the hyperarousal because of not sleeping, but also the hyperarousal as a stress from not sleeping can help us to give our best results. Sometimes, of course, it might not go the way we would imagine it. Sometimes we might forget things, but who says that we wouldn't forget it even if we slept through the night, right? So uh, I wanted to, and how to stay calm during this time. Uh, Give me one student who stays calm during his exam, right? Of course, you can use any supplement there is out there to help yourself, like to give a little bit of peace and ease. But really, just acknowledge you can't control it and you will do your best in a given moment. Anything to add, Ali?
Yeah, no, it's very nicely said. I would say that again, like it's normal. Like having exams, like it's a stressful event in and of itself. So even if you didn't have this fear around not sleeping, there will be still some level of nervousness, I imagine. Like, and there is nothing wrong about that. Yes, the good thing is like to also remind ourselves that we can perform great even when we didn't sleep much. In fact, that this as you said, hyperarousal can actually mobilize our resources and help us like get through the day, right? Last year I was doing my driving test exam, and I was so worried. I seriously, that was the night, like the night before the exam. I I I didn't sleep almost anything. Like really, I was so nervous and so on. And because like despite the seeming lack of sleep, I still passed exam driving. You know, like so there's a lot of like fear. Usually we think that, oh my God, like if I don't sleep, then I'm going to fall asleep at the wheel or something like this, right? But this not doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Actually, like hyperarousal can carry you like through this experience, like mobilizing resources and making sure that you quote unquote like get to safety, right? And then there is one more thing that whenever we are worried about like some effect not sleeping will have on something else, let's say on studies, on job, or like being fired, or anything like failing exams, anything like this, I love a video made by Daniel like a couple of years ago. It's called I think if you type it like in this channel, like search like secondary attachment, and I think this video is going to give you a really great understanding on how to work with that fear of not passing exam because of not sleeping or because of insomnia. This video exactly tackles this issue of attaching other outcome to how we sleep, and therefore this can ease a lot of pressure. So just something that to consider. Maybe that video will really help you or anyone else who is finding themselves in a similar situation to overcome this fear.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for sharing. To wrap up, I would like to say, like, if anybody is interested in more support, you can check our website as thesleepcoachschool.com and search for the options we offer. I thank you very much, Alina, for being with me here today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, anytime. And I thank you, everybody, for posting your wonderful questions. And I will see everybody next time. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye, everyone.